So a little bit about me. I was born around the Boston area. I grew up as a diehard Yankees fan, so popular everywhere I go. And I actually got into SEO by accident. I started coming out of college. I graduated, moved to DC, and we started a scholarship company that gave away scholarships to high school students to go to college. Word to the wise for the entrepreneurs, creating a business around giving away $15 million is not sustainable. But what we did find is we didn't have to pay a lot of money to get student applicants, and a big part of that was the content that we created to drive people through natural search. So that's sort of a little bit about me and how I got into SEO. Who I work for, Resolution Media. We're an omnicom company. We manage more than $1 billion in investments, have offices in 60 plus places around the world. And one of our offices, our headquarters, was featured in the movie The Dark Knight. And we're also famous for doing things on the internet. We do have a lab if you want to learn a little bit more about our company and some of the things that we're up to. Tomorrow at 7:45 and at noon in the Elizabethan room, D. So if you don't like me, my company is smart too, so it'll be interesting. Definitely check that out. So, quality content is critical to business success. So who here didn't know that content was really important? Right. So the point there is, beyond some of these metrics, what's amazing about that is everyone seems to understand that content is super important, yet more than half of marketers in the US don't really know how to measure the success of their content. And if you think about that in context, if I go to my finance department and I say, we have a really difficult time hiring people. We need a lot more millennials. They like to drink. Let's spend $5,000 a week on happy hours. My finance department is probably going to tell me, well, show me the value on the back end of hiring, of the money that these individuals are going to produce as part of the team. There's going to be some numbers involved there. Yet we have this really, really important channel that everyone understands is important, but nobody really seems to understand, how important it is and how we can show it's important. So the first step of measuring content is actually having it. And so right now, with some of the landscape changes that we're seeing in digital marketing, the quality and the relevance of content has never mattered more than it has now. And that's a really important point. So important that I wrote it as a slide title and also said it out loud. And I'm going to say it one more time because it is very important. The quality and relevance of content has never mattered more than it matters now. When we think about some of the insights that we use to drive content, it breaks down into a few different categories. So we start with the who. So that would be our audience. A little while back, we probably were creating content to speak to males between the age of 25 and 34 from the Northeast. And now, with all the data that we have and all the sort of Skynet type things that we're doing and following people around, we can actually speak to directly the 29-year-old from Needham, Massachusetts, who's a Yankees fan and walks to work and listens to Pray Your Home Companion and walks back and listens to Tupac. The interesting thing is that someone like that actually exists in the real world. But the point is that we can really market on a one-to-one basis with our content. The what is all about the format. So, it started out with a lot of text content. Largely that was what our data could handle. But we also think about video or images and what's the right format for the content that we're presenting. For example, if I'm going to learn how to tie a tie, I'm probably going to go on YouTube and look at a step-by-step video of here are the instructions on how to tie a tie. If I want to get nostalgic and remember the top 9 toys from the 90s, I'll probably go to BuzzFeed and look at an article. And yes, I do remember troll dolls. So the when is really a theme that's come up a lot in this conference already. So Jim, during his keynote, which was fantastic, talked a lot about these micro moments. So content is really as important as the moment in which the individual is consuming it. And so when you think about I want to buy or I want to go or I want to do, what's the tone of the content that you need to set for those individual micro moments? Where is the individual consuming the content? So a really interesting stat as you think about e-commerce and people purchasing digitally, 55% of product searches start on Amazon.com. So when we think about content, a lot of times we're thinking about brand.com. How are people driving people to our website with the content that we have? But the content that we're promoting on Amazon or on Target or any of the other retail sites we have, or on our social profiles, or any number of other places where someone might consume content that touches our brand or our category, it's really important that we're creating the right message and providing it in the right format. And then the how is all about, mobile, desktop, that's all great, but Alexa, self-driving cars, the Terminator-like contact lenses with augmented reality that are actually a little bit closer to reality than you might think. The message and just the form of the content is customized to the actual device that people might be consuming it on. So talked a little bit about the insights that go into developing content. And once you have content, you still need to promote it. So it's not really the field of dreams anymore. People won't just find it if you build it. Despite this fact, and we actually swapped out that, I'm surprised you haven't kicked me off the stage yet. We swapped out that chart, but regardless, despite this unknown company that we're not going to speak of, any company will tell you that more than half of organic search, more than half of internet traffic rather, comes from organic search. And that's important because people can naturally find your content, but that still leaves about half of traffic, people finding content, and you have to pay to play in a lot of ways. So you look at some of the platforms that are naturally discovering content on the App Store, Facebook, Google, all these different platforms, you see natural real estate sort of declining a little bit. So making sure you're not only creating the right content and putting it in the right places, but also putting a little bit of paid budget behind that so people can see that content and promote that content and share it out. So this is a square, and there are 4 squares inside of it. So insights, content, distribution, this is all the process of creating and sending out content. So insights is what drives the content you create. Content is the content. Distribution is where you promote that content, and then measurement is why you're all here today. So a little bit about insights, content, distribution. We talked a little bit about this already, but from an insights perspective, one of the keys is not only looking at organic data, but also looking at your paid data and integrating all that to understand how are people consuming your content in all these environments. And again, not to double promote the lab, but this is really what building off a lot of the things we're doing at Resolution. Talking about how we're taking all this data from all these different sources, compiling it, aggregating it, and leveraging them for holistic content insights. From a content perspective, adapting the brand voice to speak to the audience in that moment. So if someone's on Snapchat, you might have a very, very different interaction with them than you would on YouTube, perhaps, or on Facebook, or on your website. And then the distribution piece. One of the really cool things that we've been testing out is using BrightEdge's Share a Voice to distribute content intelligently. So understanding when people are searching, maybe if you don't have the right to play as a brand and your website, maybe you can leverage the authority of some of the other websites up there and advertise or buy media on those sites to reach that audience with your content. So how do you measure all this? How does this make sense? So one of the keys really is to not think about content metrics as a separate channel. There are metrics that you sometimes tie to content like bounce rate or time spent reading an article or whatever it might be. But really content is every single touch point that you have with a consumer. So even your landing page or your ad headline rather in a paid search campaign, that's content. And so understanding how content fits into the channel that you're looking at is a really important context to understand how to appropriately measure content. So for all channels, money is key. So more money equals good. Micro conversions, that's really kind of anything that's important to you and your business. You want your content to be able to drive success in those areas. As you drill down into some of the more channel-specific metrics, you can kind of see that there's probably not that much of a difference in how you're measuring performance on your campaigns in those channels versus performance of the content that you have or that you're supporting those efforts with. So SEO, we all know, organic visits, sure, and Share a Voice from BrightEdge, which is fantastic. I feel like I have to make up for the previous couple slides. BrightEdge is great. Paid search, the landing page relevance, which really ties into quality score, and that can really help drive your CPCs down so you can actually get more traffic, get more eyeballs on your content for less money if you have that content that's relevant. Programmatic, social buying, some of these other media channels, being able to get a higher return on your spend, because a lot of these platforms, and as you see sort of ad formats and different ad channels becoming a little bit more biddable, you see there's an algorithmic shift in how a lot of these calculations are. They're really rewarding quality content. So it'll be cheaper for you if you have quality content that's relevant, because that creates a better experience for the user and it creates a better experience for the platform. So what does this mean for your day-to-day? It means that you really can't just provide reports for one channel anymore. Everything kind of has to be on the same page in the same area so you can look at all the performance of your content across all these different channels, and you can make insights that make sense. So if you think about insights in a silo, they're incomplete. If you look at a big TV campaign that maybe you're running and you see branded search interest increase, and you then see an organic spike in traffic for branded keywords, tying those things together, you need to be able to look at performance across all these different channels. Again, if you see a higher return on your ad spend in programmatic because you use share of voice to identify pages or websites that have a qualified audience and you're buying media against those, that's something you need to be looking at all those channels to be able to come up with an insight like that. And this actually works. So these are real companies that have real names that I can't share with you. But these are all examples of ways that Resolution has worked with some of our clients on making sure the content that they have is being organized in a way that is meeting the consumer demand. It's speaking the same language as the consumer. The first example here is a retail company where we took a look at search data and organized the actual content on the website, the architecture of the website, to mirror how people are searching and the semantic relationships between categories. And we saw a huge increase in online orders. Fortune 500 entertainment company, there was a big tentpole event, major live TV event that we did some social interactions with around before, during, and after. And we saw 4 times the content engagement rate than we typically see in campaigns, because we were using an integrated messaging approach to take things from the actual event and pull them online so people could have conversations around them. Fortune 50 insurance company, in just 2 weeks we saved about $700,000. I didn't see any of that money, but the client was very happy. And essentially what we did there was we took a look at some of the keywords for which we were ranking organically in search, and we had content that was already very relevant, and we lowered our bids on those in paid search, still captured the same amount of traffic, and we saved all this money. So that was great. And then a pharmaceutical company, we ended up looking at landing page relevance from the quality score reports and got an idea of where are some gaps that we have where paid search is buying keywords, but they don't have anywhere on the site to send those users that's relevant. So we helped work with a creative agency and launch some content that was relevant to those keywords. And as a result, paid search had some new pages to send people to, and we saved a lot of money and drove a lot more traffic. Now, in the spirit of pharmaceutical companies, results may vary, but this approach has been proven to work time and time again. So what are the important takeaways of this? Well, one, you still need content. So you have nothing to measure, and you can't have success if you don't actually have content that is good and actually answers a user question and provides value. Next, you need to measure your content against your business metrics. So if you really want to promote the value of content, you really need to tie it back to the metrics that matter to the people that you're talking to. So ROI, media efficiency, so dollars saved. Typically I find that money talks, and if you're able to connect the content, the value of your content, to the money that your company is bringing in or doesn't have to spend, it makes people smile and gets their attention. And then finally, evolving beyond the SEO report. So we talked about single channel reports and how they don't really provide the context you need to understand around how your content's performing, not just in one channel, but as a whole for your business. So building that dashboard to be able to look at all this data all at once and then coming up with insights that are integrated across these channels is another key in terms of measuring your content. So have good content, show how it makes your company money or saves your company money, and then do that in one place and you should be in pretty good shape. Thank you.